They can say no, and then what? You don't gain or lose anything. You're same place. I remember when I started in news, people would say, oh, it's too hard. Don't do it. You'll never get hired. And I followed my dreams, and things happened. It wasn't easy, but doors would open that would get me there. And so my advice to young graduates and young journalists, follow your dreams. Do you want to be in sports? You want to be a sports reporter, an entertainment reporter? Content will always be king. Even if AI is in the mix, everybody still wants content and stories. So, follow your dreams and you never know what's going to happen.
Technology is changing, AI is rising, our life is going to be different in a very short time. For that reason, I have Walt Maciborski here in the studio. He's CBS anchor, reporter, and Take This Out host. Walt, welcome to the show.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you for the invite.
Thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited to ask you a lot of questions that I have, but the number one is, how did you get to be a reporter then? Because I look at your background from the beginning to now, you had that passion.
Well, it's interesting. Failure is a great motivator. And failure was a big part of my life early on that I had to lean into and survive. Otherwise, you can either stay in the failure and not move on or continue to chase your dreams. So I decided, you know what? I have nothing to lose at this point, so I'm going to continue to chase my dreams. And that really started my career. It's kind of funny. It started with a kid's dream that got crushed. I played baseball throughout Little League, and then I played first base, made All-Stars. I really thought maybe I could be a professional baseball player. But I got cut from my high school team, and I was devastated. These guys came in, and they were like men, and they were playing summer leagues, and they were training with professional teams, and I didn't even know that world existed. So I said, okay, how can I be close to baseball without playing it? So what I would do is I'd turn the TV down in my room and do the play-by-play, and I thought I could be a broadcaster. I could be a sports broadcaster. So that kind of launched things for me, getting cut from the baseball team. But the biggest, I think, failure or tragedy that I had to overcome was our family went bankrupt.
Total bankrupt.
Lost everything. My dad was in real estate, highly leveraged with properties. But in the 80s or so, there was this big S&L scandal. So all these banks failed. All these loans were called, and we lost everything. So I came from a life of comfort to now a life of survival. And I don't know if you've heard the saying, hungry dogs run faster. I was hungry. So I'm in high school, and I said, what am I going to do? So I found faith. I went to, my mom gave me a birthday present to go to a church camp. And that kind of energized me, saying that, you know what, there's something out there that's bigger than me, and I think I'm going to be okay. And I said, you know what, I'm at the bottom now. We lost everything. We lost our house, our cars, everything. So I have nothing to lose. I'm just going to chase my dreams. And that's what I did. So the career started in broadcast, kind of unique, because I went to community college, which at the time for me was a big... I was kind of embarrassed by it because I got good grades, and I thought, you know what, I should be going to a 4-year college, but I'm not, so I need to lean into what I have. So I started at Saddleback Community College in Southern California, but they had a TV station. And so I started a show called On Location. So I called college tours at the time, and they did college tours to Mexico. And I said, hey, I will shoot this for you with all your college students, and I'll give you the footage. You just give me a free trip. So I did a college tours trip to, Mexico. And then I called Canada. This was 1988. And I said, hey, the Olympics are coming. Can we do a profile of all your Olympic venues? And we'll give you all the footage. So we did that. We aired it on our little cable channel at the community college. And they gave me a free trip to Canada. So that was a great launching pad. I said, you know what? Community college is great. I was able to learn a lot, fail fast, learn what I loved, and move on. But the big turning point for me was when I got to go to USC because it was kind of the candy store of media for me. And I wasn't going to apply. And I said, Dad, we don't have any money because we're bankrupt. I can't afford USC. It's a private university. And he said, you know what? Pray about it and apply anyway. What do you have to lose? So I applied. I got in. And I called the counselor and I said, it's like a gut punch to me, sir, because I have no money to go to your university, and this has been my dream. And he said, well, have your parents sign and fill out the financial need form and send it to me, and I'll call you in a week. So he calls me in a week and says, congratulations, the University of Southern California is going to take care of your tuition because you met financial need parameters. Welcome to the University of Southern California.
Wow.
So they picked up my first 2 years, and I got plugged in. I got an internship at ABC News, and that really was my dream job because Peter Jennings was my hero. And I got to meet him. I went to London with ABC News. And while I was on the ABC lot in LA, I also was a page for ABC Entertainment. So when I wasn't working in the news division, on the weekends, I would go host in between commercials and tell jokes and bring audiences into the show and then bring the audiences out. I did the home show and the pilot for America's Funniest Home Videos. So Bob Saget was the host. I would bring people in, tell some jokes, do the commercials, clap, send the next audience out. And so I did that. It's always a great experience.
Connecting with people and actually being on the, as an anchor and working as a reporter, that's by itself as an art. How did you learn to connect with people? Like
you, it's curiosity. It's people are so fascinating. And they, like you say, all have a story. And those stories can be motivating. They can be energizing. They can also validate maybe you are doing the right thing, even though the world says you aren't, or you're quiet and nothing's happening yet. Maybe that person was in that waiting place and then they launched somewhere. But if you don't have that validation or hear that story, you never get the chance to learn from it, be enriched by it, and then add it to your story. So when you talk to people, how many famous people have you talked to who had to face a tragedy or get through something super hard before they really made it?
A lot.
Because people always see the success. They never see the struggle and those dark days. And, it's so important to hear those stories as you and young people start their journeys. But like you, curiosity is what motivates me in the field of journalism.
Because you're still doing it, like with the hosting of the tech show, and that's the great name. Take this out, check this out.
So that's what was funny.
How did you come up with that name?
Because first of all, nobody in town locally really does a good job with covering technology. Usually people cover technology when there's a problem. Oh, Dell is having layoffs. Let's do a story on Dell. Oh, the tech sector is hurting. Let's do a story on that. But nobody's really talking about the innovation. And so when I was looking at things, I saw robots being made at Apptronic, and I talked to people in the newsroom. I said, look at this. They're doing robots at the domain in this little warehouse. It's called Apptronic. Check this out. And I thought, oh, man, that might be a good name for a tech show called, hey, check this out.
Check
this out. So that's how it started. My boss came to me and said, hey, Walt, I need you to cover a beat. Do you want to cover City Hall, transportation? Do you want to do something with the environment or, city budgets? And I said, no, I don't want to do any of that. I don't want the cop beat. I don't want the city beat. I don't want the transportation beat. And he says, well, you have 1 week to come up with a franchise. And I said, I got it. He goes, what is it? And I go, check this out. And he goes, oh, okay. Well, then you need to work on a graphics package and some subjects. And I said, I had been secretly shooting 5 stories that were ready to go in the can, and I built a graphics package. And I said, I can launch this on Friday, and we can start it now. And he was like, okay, let's do it. So that kind of launched the whole Check This Out. I could do it every day in Austin. The innovation happening here.
It's huge.
The innovators, the CEOs, you see it every day, and their stories need to be told.
Like the Plug and Play just posted it. It came to Frisco.
Their innovations for sports tech, the wearables and the sports performance that's going to come out of Frisco is going to blow people's minds. You think our athletes do a great job now with what they have? Wait till these innovators and startups saying, oh, but wait, I can make you run faster. Oh, wait, I can help you sleep better. The stuff that's going to come out of there is going to blow our minds.
A lot of startups are going on in Austin, close to 800, that's from the Capital Factory to Plug and Play and other stuff. The rate of failure is very high. And you were in it. And why you think that most of these companies are failing? the founders?
There's a couple things that are happening. It's cliche, but never give up. That's one of the things that they're facing, is that it's hard to be a founder.
Very hard.
There are nights where you're crying. There are nights where you think, I just spent my whole 401k on this company and I need to feed my family. Why is there no money? That's one of my biggest frustrations with the tech sector here, is that there should be so much more money in Texas. Why do founders have to go to LA, Boston, and New York to get their money? You have oil money here, you have energy money here, and you have people that have the data and analytics to profile your company to see if it'll succeed or not, and they have the money. They should really invest in Texans and Texas. We shouldn't have to go to the coast to get money for our startups. But another reason these startups fail is that there's so much competition, and putting in the work is hard. You can toil in obscurity for 2 years, 3 years. And if the money's not there, you have to make tough choices.
It's a tough economy too. Right now, we were all hoping that everything is going to get better, but any startup that I talk to, they're all suffering. Yeah. Raising money or going forward or continuing or hiring the developers, from the overseas or developers here. The developers here are more expensive than overseas.
But the narrative is so confusing. You have a startup or a Fortune 500 company that makes their annual plan. Then they hear tariffs. So what do you believe from the administration? Is the tariff a smokescreen, or is it really going to happen? What we've seen is that, 125, 150% tariffs were a smokescreen. It never was going to be that. But you can't count on that, because what if it is? So you have to make modifications, and then when you realize, that was a bluff to get them to the table, and now the tariffs are only 30%, which are still higher, but they're not 150%. But you've already planned for 150, and you've had to cut people, and you've had to stop some of your production. That's been some of the frustrating things. There's no clear path forward in this economy with what's going on right now. There's no stability. So that is a huge hurdle, especially for startups. Fortune 500 companies are going to get through it. They'll do layoffs, then rehire. But you can't lay off your whole 4-person startup team, because that's all you really have when you're really kind of bootstrapping it.
Especially when it comes to manufacturing, it's a piece of devices.
But there's another thing that I think is really exciting. These kids, who I hope to do a profile on soon, they said, AI is taking care of the software side, the programming side. It's really disrupting the industry. But we always still have to make things. There are makers out there that are going to have physical things, from phones to cups to microphones. They need to innovate and build somewhere. So outside of Austin near Lockhart, they started this place called Prototown. And they're going to have builders there. They're going to set up, they can make things. I think that's going to be another big frontier where we can make things. But it's, any way you look at it, it's tough. But I hope it comes back in terms of the money.
I agree with you. In the manufacturing part, if something like physical things, motherboards, transmitter, mic, everything, that's I agree. But AI is rising. And it's scary.
It is so scary.
Really, well, I don't know what is real, what is not real. And I want to show you something. Maybe you have seen it, but this is really, I am telling you.
3, where AI might gain human consciousness.
She's not real.
Thanks for that, Sarah.
Ray, breaking news this just in. TikTok is going to be banned again for the second time starting August
I know.
1st,
that is so scary.
How are we going to deal with this? Is it like,
so scary.
Is it really like gonna take the anchor's job, which is I don't think so, but is it gonna confuse people?
Yes.
Misperception?
Yes.
Or how are we gonna deal with this? It's really scary.
Remember Max Headroom? Everybody thought that was not gonna happen. Max Headroom was kind of like the first kind of like fake anchor. It was like in the 1980s. It was a joke. And I thought, oh my gosh, that's coming. They're gonna make people look real. That was the biggest problem with fake anchors. They never looked real. All those people look real. And now it's going to be, I think I was talking about it to some people in the newsroom. People in Austin know me from the news.
Yes.
And they know my mannerisms. They know my mistakes. They know my quirkiness. They know my humor. And they know me. That's one thing that's hard to program into the AI. That'll be the difference maker. You know what blew me away? The social media influencers. I've always been trained to be as clean and slick as possible on the air. But the people that started making tons of money on social media and YouTube were just natural. They didn't dress up, no makeup, no big fancy production. They were just talking about this cup. Hey, I just got this cup from Target. It's really cool. I can really drink out of it really nice. And whoa, I kind of spilled some, and it was really natural and human, and people connected with it. So the one thing AI can't do yet is have that human, fallible connection and realness. The people that were real on social media took off. They're making millions. Hey, look at my dress. I would wear this on a party on a Saturday night. I got this at Kohl's. It was only $10, but I dressed it up with this fancy belt. And it's just some lady in our living room talking about her clothes, and she's an influencer making millions a year. I mean, reality is going to be the one thing that will combat artificial reality. And I think that'll be the one saving grace, because there'll be a way that humans still connect. Like a conversation. I miss conversations. I miss touching the newspaper in my hands. I miss people being at dinner where you don't have these on. Even these on the table are a distraction. Every time I go out with my family, I'll take my phone and put it in my pocket or leave it in the car.
I just put it here to show you that.
No, I'm just saying. It's just part of our culture. You think you don't notice it,
Yes.
but one vibration on the table, there's a text. Do you answer that text? Is your mind going toward what's that text, or are you engaged in this conversation? So I think there's going to be this crossroads where people are going to say, you know what, I want authenticity. And AI is going to be really slick. Maybe if they can program better authenticity into AI, which they probably can soon, that will be a factor. But it's really the human connection. I think that will be the next frontier of trying to humanize AI in such a way. Then I'm out of a job.
But I agree with you. I don't think so. AI can replace what we do right now. That connection, that human emotions, they can copy some of the human emotions, but I don't think so it's going to be as real as you and I are sitting and having this conversation.
Well, it can't replicate the excitement of getting a bike at Christmas time. It can't replicate, the tears of losing a family member. It can't replicate the raw emotion of human experience. That's the one thing that will always set us apart. Because your stories of growing up, to your career, to all the hard days you had, to all the successes you have, you can program that into an AI that looks like you, but you're never going to have that feeling and the emotion of living it. That AI never lived it. You did. And that's the one thing that will come across and jump out of the screen.
I told somebody that AI is not going to take our jobs, but if you don't learn how to use it, it might affect you. It's another tool.
It is. It's another tool. And don't be afraid by it. What I tell everybody, especially in news, they have so many free trials out there. Play with the free trials. There's a company called HeyGen. So I did a 2-minute video of myself, and then it copied my voice and my mannerisms and my image, and then I typed in a script and it did it, but it didn't have the mannerisms right. So it would get the hands wrong. So when I did my 2-minute video, the hand motions weren't
as realistic as
they weren't in the right inflection point. So I would say, I went to the store Tuesday to buy some bread and it was really expensive. My hands went up when I said, I went to the store yesterday. The hands when I went to the store yesterday doesn't work. I was gesturing when I said it was really expensive. That's where the hand gestures were effective. It wasn't in the middle of it. So it doesn't know how to kind of place the hand gestures yet. But what I couldn't believe is that it was started by a couple guys who were frustrated by translations in movies that the lip sync was way off. So they wanted to revolutionize lip sync for international movies so they could have it in any language, but the lips matched. So I took one of my Check This Out stories and I translated it into Dutch, and I spoke perfect Dutch, and I did my story, no lip flap, and I sent it to a guy and I said, how good is this? And this guy from Holland said, it's pretty good. It's a little formal and it's not conversational speak, but it was right on. I translated it into Spanish. The Telemundo anchor looked at it and he goes, oh my gosh, you translate your Check This Out story perfectly in Spanish with this translation. And it's me speaking Spanish. I don't know Spanish fluently, but this HeyGen AI thing did. So I think one thing that's really good, I'll be able to reach other markets and other languages with these stories. But even just if you're afraid of AI, go Get on ChatGPT, ask it to write you a letter, or ask it to write you an email, ask it to make a recipe, ask it to do something simple, and you will be blown away.
It's going to help so many people, but it's going to hurt some people too.
It will.
Like a writer, script writers, like the new Google came out. You know, that's news was part of it. They made it with that. You give them a script.
Yeah.
Like screenwriters, they're gonna give them that screen and they're gonna write it and it create that short campaign.
Yeah.
Which is, I look at it as we do media. It was hard to say. We knew it's AI, but for ordinary people,
sure,
it's really hard to differentiate that.
It really is, and you got to figure out how it works for you. I think you understand it because you're on the front lines of it. I think a lot of people, especially the older generation, that doesn't trust it. Like I was talking to my mother-in-law, and she said, "I really need a plan to do. I need a plan to move out of my house, and I'm going to get my house sold, and we're going to move to another city." And I said, "Why don't you play with AI and say, what's the best way to organize your house for pictures for a listing appointment, get everything packed, and what's the most cost-efficient way to move? Is it a U-Haul, Rent-A-Movers, or whatever?" I said, just speak that into ChatGPT. And she goes, "How does this work?" And I showed her. ChatGPT said, make sure there's no clutter in the house to get rid of the pictures, and, take the pictures for your listing, and then da-da-da-da. And she goes, "How did that do that so fast?" I said, Mimi, this is the future. You just got to play with it. But it is scary. It will take jobs. But the people that know how to master it will be in a better position.
Do you guys allow to use it at the TV station?
Yes. So I use AI.
Policies, because some companies, some organizations, they have an AI policy now.
There are policies, but we still have gatekeepers and verification. So the way I use AI is this interview, for example. Say if we talk for an hour and I need to do a 2-minute news story, I'm going to put this whole thing through AI to log it for me. Before, I would sit at my computer and you would say something, I would log it. I would say something, I'd log it. So I'd log the whole interview. And then it would take me 2 hours for an hour interview. It was just so much wasted time. Now I put it through AI. It reads it, transcribes it. I can pick my sound bites and put my story together. That's just such a big time saver. Or say if I'm looking at a company like Sky-Fi. They use satellites that you can train anywhere in the world. I don't really know much about Sky-Fi, maybe going into the interview. So I'll ask ChatGPT, scour the internet for all the articles on Sky-Fi and give me a 2-paragraph synopsis of what they do. And it spits it out in 10 seconds. It preps me for the interview. And then I can go in with a knowledge base that I wouldn't have had that fast. Otherwise, I've had to research articles, maybe take an hour to get my questions ready. Now it spits it out for me and I'm prepped to go in minutes.
I want to ask you a question that I was going to ask you, and I said, oh, should I ask or not? But as a reporter, sometimes, you report things.
Sure.
And sometimes it doesn't go well with you, with your internal, whatever you have, belief, whatever.
Sure.
How you feel that you still have to report that, and you say, I shouldn't do it, or why did I do it? And I know it's your job as a reporter, and
sure,
all the reporters, they go through this.
Sure.
Like you got to say something that sometimes you're not believing it or you're not agree with it, but it's your job. You are the reporter. You got to go out there and report. How you feel? How you deal with that?
Well, I'm classically trained as a journalist compared to the younger generation. So really, when I went through, it was Peter Jennings, Tom Brokaw, and you had a template that you worked by. You had to be accurate. You had to be fair. You had to give both sides their say. And you had to do it in such a way that you presented it as non-biased as possible. I have life experiences that make me biased. And I've got to check those at the door when I do a story. And when I go to a controversial story, I've got to let them say their side, and I've got to let these other people say their side. I might agree with this side, but you can't tell when I'm on the air what side I'm on. The biggest compliment I get is during election season.
Tough.
What I love is that I'll get emails. You're the biggest liberal on the face of the earth. I can't believe your stupid newscast. And then right after that, I go, you're so conservative. It's so transparent. I see it right through the TV. And I go, perfect. Everybody's pissed at me. They think I'm liberal or too conservative. I'm doing my job. there are times where I interview somebody and I'll say, Frank Johnson, blah, 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 says he didn't do it. And he goes, the soundbite, I didn't do it. I was just doing, only had one drink and blah, blah, blah. But I know he's lying through his teeth and he's the biggest scumbag on the earth. And I would love to say that on the news, but I can't. I just say, Frank Johnson says this is what happened. He says a soundbite. The investigator says this is what happened. The trial starts on June 6th. That's my job. I can't. The problem is people have made a lot of money putting their opinions into the news. You see it happen on Fox News, CNBC. CNN used to be my favorite, but then they didn't know what to do. They said, should we be more conservative? So they started doing that, but they didn't do that as well as Fox. Then they said, we need to be a little more liberal, and they didn't do that as well as MSNBC. And they kind of lost their way instead of just doing the news. I think that'll be a commodity that's going to be worth more in the future. Just tell me what happened. Don't tell me your opinion because I don't care. Yeah. And just say, who said what happened, go to the vigil, tell me both sides, and then let's move on.
And you saying unbiased, and the people that they're listening or watching, they make their own decision.
That's the goal. And, that's what you try to do every day, because if there's a murder in town, of course, I see this devastated family and I want to defend them. But I have to have the prosecutor and the defense say their piece. I have to go in and say the facts as we know them. I can't say, oh, he probably did this. I have to say, investigators say, this is what happened, and this was what happened. We'll have more from the trial. And really, that's the best way to go, because people are smart enough to see through it. They'll see through a soundbite and go, I don't trust that guy. So I don't even have to say it, because they'll see the sound bites and go, you know what? I've made up my mind. I don't trust that guy. That's interesting. But if I start injecting myself in it, it gets messy.
You diluted it.
And then people don't care what I think. I mean, I'll say some things about the weather because that's pretty safe.
Yeah.
But when it comes to politics or hard news or
like I was talking to one of the politicians, the immigration issue came up, and he deep in his heart, and he believed that we have to give a chance for immigrants that they come here to change their lives, but they came here illegally. And he was saying that, okay, what we have to do, let's give them a chance, give them the temporary work permit, let them pay their taxes, do their dues, pay their dues, and do the right thing. Don't break the law. If you break the law, we send you back. But during your stay in Texas, you got to do this and you got to work. And he said, yeah, if we don't do that and we send everybody back, the whole state would collapse.
It would, yeah.
Because I was looking, after he said that, I was looking at outside, all the bridges, all the construction. And as a matter of fact, I talked to one of the Hispanics. He said, yeah, I don't have a work permit, but I'm the best of doing this for less money. But if you give me a work permit, I would gladly pay taxes.
Oh, yeah.
But this is right now what's going on.
There's no good vetting system, and it's really not one size fits all.
No.
It's too layered. There's too many layers to the onion that will really, I think, hurt states and economies, because I have done stories on people that have been working in this country with a construction job for 30 years. And then I find out they're not here legally. How is that possible? You're paying taxes, you have a house, you own a car, you have a driver's license, and you're not, what's the path to legality? That needs to be changed and streamlined as well. And there needs to be a better vetting system where it's not just a blanket, okay, we're sending everybody back, because the creative minds and the people and the established community members, I'm blown away when I find out people, they're not citizens. And I said, I would have gone to Vegas and put $100,000 and said that you were a citizen. I mean, what's it like for you now? And they said, well, I'm scared because I've been a businessman in this country for 30 years. I don't know what to do. I'm just, laying low, continue to work hard. So yeah, that's a tough thing. That's a tough thing to go
And
through.
I agree, a lot of criminals out there that they're taking advantage of the situation. I know that for a fact.
And I think everybody agrees with that. Get the criminals out.
Yes.
But then when the criminals mix in with the people that are doing good, or the people that get hit by the shrapnel of the people that are criminals, like say if this criminal gets raided and he lives next to a guy who's an upstanding citizen, they might raid that whole block and you might be brought into this whole net And this person is probably super upstanding, goes to church, pays his way, great kids, and he gets caught up, and then he's stuck now trying to figure out what to do next. There's no easy answer to this.
How you think the news stations, they can gain the trust of the public? Because sometimes I hear that, you hear that they say, don't listen to news, they're all lying. How really we can solve this?
That was really such an unfortunate narrative that Donald Trump started using way back in 2016 and before. But what I really like about local news is that I'm at the Capital Factory event. I'm at the Plug and Play event. I work with the Austin Chamber. I do a thing called Austin Gives. That's my opportunity to sit in these events and meet people and talk to them. And then they go, oh, hey, I met Walt at the Chamber. I'm going to watch his newscast. And then maybe they talk to me about my favorite sports teams or where I like to shop for steaks. And they have this connection with me and they know it's genuine. So when they watch me, they know it's me. It's the same guy they met at the Chamber of Commerce. It's the same guy that's on the news. So there's a relationship that the national guys don't have. We always get confused with national news. Oh, you're all the same. We're not. We only have a 12-minute news hole. Say at 5 to 5:30, we only have 12 minutes of news. We got 3 minutes for weather and 2 minutes for sports, maybe sometimes no sports in 5. And so we don't have time for Walt Maciborski to give his opinion on anything. We got to get through as much news as we can, get our sponsors in and our breaks and our commercial breaks, get to the weather, get to sports and say bye. We don't have time to spend all this manufactured moments on trying to spin it. We just got to get it on the air and tell you what's happening in Austin. I-35 is under construction. There's a cap and stitch project. It might cause traffic delays for years. UT is changing its emission policy. The Round Rock Express won next week, and they just got a guy rehabbing from the Rangers in town if you want to see him. You know, it's what's happening in our community, not only that affects your life, but maybe enhances your life. And that's different from the national guys. So I think trust is built by being consistent and being in your community. And that's what I try to do. Be consistent every night and be in the community.
You're building that because I'm in the tech community and they talk about you, my friends. You gaining the amazing respect between us that you pushing the tech community out there and tell the citizen that here you go, this is what's happening in Frisco, this is happening here. You're helping, you're real. We love real in the tech that, yeah, okay, Walt is out there cheering for us. He's putting the news out there. But I wish everybody will think like that.
I do too, and I don't know why. The problem with news that I see with the younger generation is that I got into news to tell stories and maybe change lives. Maybe my story can maybe change a lot to help people. Maybe my story can do something that will improve the community. Or maybe I'll do a story about volunteering to clean up trash on Lady Bird Lake, and you'll go out on Saturday and help clean up trash because you saw the story. That's kind of how the older generation got into news. Now with cell phones, it's all about me. It's like, hey, here's a selfie of me on the set. Here's a shot of my shoes today. Or, hey, look at my lipstick. Oh, by the way, I'm going to do the news tonight. Well, that's a whole different generation. It's like you might get some viewers to watch the news to see your lipstick, but the news is really about how do you impact the community, how do you change things, and how do you make it better for everybody? By informing people. And information is power. And if I can get the best critical, vetted information out there so you can make a decision on if you want to get around traffic, if you want to stay in town during ACL or go to Dallas so you don't have to fight the traffic, whatever it is, hopefully I give you enough informed decision. And of course, the critical piece of weather, especially now with severe weather season, tornadoes the other night, it was so frustrating. People were calling us angry that we were breaking into the music award show. There's a tornado barreling down on Fredericksburg, and you want to watch your award show because you're not affected in Austin? Our policy is if there's ever a tornado warning, we break in no matter what's on. And we also had a little box to show what was happening at the award show. And everybody should know by now, in 1 hour, you can watch the whole thing on YouTube. You're not going to miss it. But I want to know if a tornado is going to kill me over, Rod Stewart getting an award. I like Rod Stewart, but I'd rather be around to watch it on YouTube in an hour,
Yeah, I hope the new generation of reporters, anchors that listen to this and watch it and understand what you're trying to do in more traditional way rather than more, selfish technology. But one day you're going to be retired, you know it, and then the next generation is going to change. Do you have any advice for them if they want to be an anchor or reporter right now?
My biggest advice for a young journalist coming in is, first of all, be curious. Don't be curious about you. Be curious about the other people. Tell their story. There's so many stories that are just not untold. Go into your community, go into your church, go into places that maybe you haven't been before and start talking to people. You'll find incredible stories. I had a fan on Facebook who watched me, and he just Facebook messaged me and he said, "Hey, I want to talk to you." I was curious why he wanted to talk. He's a police officer in LaGrange, and he said his gun went off out of the blue and he was in the hospital because his service weapon went off. And I said, "I'm so sorry to hear that. Are you okay?" And he goes, "I almost died in LaGrange." And I said, "Tell me your story." And it was an incredible story, but I wouldn't have known that unless I engaged in my community, connected to people, and wanted to hear their story. So this led to an investigation into Sig Sauer pistols. I'm not against guns. This story was not anti-gun. It wasn't pro-gun. It was this gun had a problem. So he said the gun went off out of the blue in his holster. And I said, "How is that possible?" And he goes, "I was closing a gate in LaGrange. I always do this at sunset. It's a public park. I was walking to my car. I heard a bang, and then I'm on the ground bleeding. I got the body cam footage of the first responders that helped him. A neighbor called 911 and saved his life." And I started looking. There's 200 incidents of police officers and some in the military where the Sig Sauer P320 model, just this one, goes off out of the blue because there's a vibration that triggers the striker fire weapon. And he wasn't alone. So this started a story that some police departments like Marble Falls pulled all the Sig Sauer P320s because it happened to one of their officers.
Wow.
During a homecoming game, the officer's gun went off out of the blue in his holster and it was locked on his hip. So my curiosity about his story and investigating it a little more turned into this investigation that might save lives. So my advice to young journalists is be curious, be human, and have fun with it, because you never know the stories that'll take you down all these different roads.
That's amazing. And I agree with you 100% because you have to be curious what's happening around you and then just tell the stories.
Yeah, just tell the story. Don't go in with an agenda. Just say, "Hey, what happened?" And then, is this good for the public or bad for the public? And then talk to some public servant about what they would like to see change. Maybe talk to a lawmaker about if this is something that they can do to help people's lives and change a law. I mean, there's so many avenues that reporters can go down. Like, for example, KXAN has a great investigative team.
Yes.
They did a story on, remember the North Austin Medical Center?
Yes.
The person went through the thing. Not all hospitals have bollards in front of their emergency centers. So they did a story about getting the bollards in front of these emergency centers so the cars can't go in. Well, now that went to the legislature and they're looking at laws to change that so hospitals are more secure. I mean, that's journalism that changes things for the better. And that's what I hope to do.
Basically, the journalist is out there to see something and try to improve it or tell the story to fix things.
We're not perfect and we're human
Nobody's
at the end of the day, but, I think a newscast has to be diverse and it has to be informative and it has to, give people information that can be life-saving or just fun.
Walt, have you ever been in a newsroom and you forgot your thoughts, what you were saying, and what did you do?
Oh yeah, all the time.
What did you do?
I remember my first job. In TV, you move around a lot, and they don't do it as much anymore because young kids can get out of college and go to a big market. But really, when I started, you had to start in a small market. So I worked at ABC News. I was a desk assistant for a while. I traveled to London and I met Peter Jennings, and I worked at ABC News. And I said, hey, I want to work for ABC News. And my manager says, you need to go to a small market, make your mistakes, and then work your way up. So I got my first job in Medford, Oregon, and I was a weekend anchor reporter. I shot everything on a big camera with a deck that had 3/4 inch.
You shot it?
Yeah, it was a one-man band, and that was super hard. And then I remember I was anchoring one night, and there was an Indian tribe called the Philomath Indians. But when I was practicing it in the newsroom, I said, the Philomath Indians. And somebody who was local said, no, it's Philomath. And so I said, Philomath. So when it was on the air, I said, and I just stared at the camera, and my brain was going, Philomath. And I just said, the Indian tribe has, and I didn't even say the name. I just froze, and, I looked at the tape afterward, and I just totally botched it. But it was in Medford, and they were really forgiving, because what happens is you go there, you make your mistakes, you get a little more seasoned, then you leave. So they're used to a lot of rookies coming into town. But
the live is different.
Yeah, you're stuck. You're just like
It happened to you in the live?
It was live. It was a live show, deer in the headlights, everything. And, it was one of those things where I had to think fast. So I just said, I'm not going to say the name. Or, my philosophy is if I get stuck in breaking news, if I see a name, I just try to read it really fast with authority and move on until I figure out what the real name is. It's really hard because sometimes, I don't know what it is. Sometimes with criminals, they have 6 names. Frank, Johnson, McGill, Francis, whatever. And it's like, why can't we just have the first and last name? Why are they always putting all the names? Because he might have an alias, or they might be somebody else they're looking for. So we try to get that first reference up there, and then we'll go to just the last name. But sometimes when you're reading it on the fly, you're like, whoa, okay, how do I get this? I remember my first job interview in Medford was so scary. I drove up there. I checked in at 9:00, and I said, hey, I love this job. And the news director said, you can shoot, write, and edit your stuff. And I go, absolutely, I know how to do that. He goes, hold on. He gets somebody in the newsroom and said, what are you working on today? And he said, well, da-da-da-da. He said, are you doing anything fun or light? He said, yeah, there's a shopping spree out in Gold Hill at noon. And the guy has 2 minutes to get all the stuff in a shopping cart. And then he gets that. He won this prize. And I go, oh, that's an interesting story. And he goes, you have a camera and a car loaded up? Okay, you're going to go with Walt. Walt, I want you to shoot it, write it, and edit it. And it has to air at the 5 and 6 o'clock news. And everything goes well, I'll hire you. I'm like,
wow. Okay.
So I got in the
car. No pressure.
We went and we shot the story. I typed it up in the newsroom. The anchors read it, and he goes, okay, you're hired. The salary is $12,500 a year. You're kidding me. You're kidding. I could make more as a waiter. So I thought about it. I said, you know what? I got to start somewhere. I'll look at it as paid grad school. I'll just go take this $12,500 a year job, and then maybe I'll get overtime. And that's how it kind of started. The hardest thing for me was I was in Medford, Oregon, and Ashland is a beautiful little Oregon town. They have a Globe Theater for Shakespeare and stuff. There was a bar I'd always go to with my buddies after work. People would come in and say, hey, Walt from the news, beer's on him. He's the TV guy. And I go, man, I can't even afford a beer. I'm on Top Ramen stuff.
$12,000 a year.
So then that's the goal. You try to work your way up to bigger markets and bigger markets. But I'd also say to young reporters out there, follow your passion and your heart, because after a year and a half, I started getting calls for bigger markets. And Reno called and said, hey, we want you to be a 5 o'clock anchor. And I said, wow, Reno, great. It's a big market. I can move from Medford to Reno. And then I go out to this interview, and they messed with my teleprompter to see how well I could react to breaking news and kind of adjust if things went haywire on the set. I kind of floundered in that, and then I did a clean read, and they liked it. And then they said, we'd like to offer you $30,000 a year to come to Reno. I go, wow, it doubles my salary. This is great. And then 2 days later, Austin called, KVUE called, and they said, hey, we want you to come interview for a job, but you're the second candidate, not the first candidate. We want you to apply for this job as a reporter. And I said, well, I will be the number one candidate if you fly me out. And she said, it's not in the budget. I said, I'll make a deal with you. I will split airfare with you, and I will split the hotel room and the rental car if you fly me out. And they said, okay. So I went out there. I stayed at the Radisson downtown. It's now called the Line Hotel. It's right downtown. And I went to the bar and I said, hey, it was a regular. I said, what are the top stories? And he said, well, SOS is a big story. It's about environmental and save our springs. And, Mayor Kirk Watson at the time, back in the 90s. And so I got all this stuff. I did a really good interview and I got the job. I came back home and they called me and they said, we want to hire you as a reporter at KVUE. It's $26,000 a year. And I was like, I got to take the money in Reno. It's 30. And then I called my mom and she said, you know what? You need to really pray about it and think about it. And so I thought, capital of Texas, great state. Maybe if I'm good enough, I'll move up faster than Reno. I'll just take the 26 and tell Reno no. So I told Reno no. And they came back and said, okay, $45,000. We want you to come. And I said, well, why didn't you make that offer already? And they said, well, we thought we could get you cheap. And I said, okay, let me think about it. I thought about it, same thing. Capital of Texas, better opportunity, bigger news. Maybe I'll move up faster. And I told them no. And then they came at me 2 more days later and they said, our final offer is $55,000. And I was like, oh God, what am I doing? My heart says I need to go to Texas. And my overwhelming piece was the Texas job will serve you better than Reno. So I told Reno, I said, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to turn down the money. This is going to be a better opportunity for me to go to. They were going to give me an anchor job in Reno. Austin was just a reporter.
But you look into the future.
I was thinking, you know what? I'll have a better trajectory if I go to Austin. So I came to Austin. 6 months later, I was the weekend anchor. A year later, I was the main anchor with Judy Maggio. And then I got picked up by Atlanta, went to the Olympics with NBC. And then I had a job in Tampa. I worked in Dallas and Indy, and then I've been back here for about 13 years. Started the tech franchise because I thought it was underserved community, and I love it.
Basically, temptation is everywhere, but at the end of the day, you got to trust your gut.
Trust your gut.
And what you really want out of it.
Yeah, because, the easy money might be a trap or a dead end. And I thought, you know what? I really need $55,000, but in the long term, it'll probably be better for me to go to Austin. I'll suck it up. I've been making $12,500 a year for 2 years. I'm still almost doubling my salary. So,
have you ever interviewed somebody that you said, that's the one? It was so inspiring. You interviewed so many people. What was the most inspiring one?
Oh, gosh, that's so hard. That's so hard. I've been inspired by so many people. I'm inspired by, people who have a dream to change the world. I remember when I came to town, and they said, it was another situation where they said, what's your franchise? And I said, I don't know. Tech email seems to be pretty fancy. It seems like the new thing. Maybe I'll start a tech franchise at KVUE. And I did. It was called Click Here on Tuesday. But I wanted a big splash in the tech thing. So I said, if I could get Michael Dell, that would be great. He agreed to do an interview. He started his job, his computer company in the dorm room of UT. And he was just kind of getting things going. Stock was going nuts and splitting. And he agreed to do an interview with me. So I got an exclusive with him. So, that was super inspiring to me because this kid who had an idea ran with it. And now he starts Dell Computer, which is crazy to me. And then you just have regular people with powerful stories, veterans who risk their lives to save people. I've had some great stories with that. Veterans who've been burned from roadside bombs that are changing lives of other veterans. They decided to, instead of wallow in their pain and frustration, they got healed by helping other people. And that was a powerful story to tell because if I was in that situation, I would probably retreat and go, you know what, woe is me. But these guys said, no, I'm going to get through this and help other people, which helped heal them. And so I've learned a lot from those interviews. But everybody has a great story, and it can be powerful. The other interesting one was when I was about ready to go to Atlanta, and Governor Bush there was rumors that he was going to run for president. So I reached out, got an exclusive interview with George W. Bush, and at the mansion here in Austin, and we did a big story about that. And I think the lesson that I learned is that go for it, just try. Because
just ask.
Yeah, they can say no, and then what? You don't gain or lose anything. You're same place, right? but a lot of people don't ask. I remember when I started in news, people would say, "Oh, it's too hard. Don't do it. You'll never get hired." It's go into sales or something because you're a personable guy. Just don't do news. I go, I don't like if news fails, maybe I'll go into sales because I do like sales. But I'm going to try this. And I followed my dreams, and things happened. It wasn't easy, but doors would open that would get me there. And so my advice to like young graduates and young journalists, follow your dreams. Do you want to be in sports? Do you want to be a sports reporter, an entertainment reporter? Do you want to be in news? These roles, content will always be king. Even if AI is in the mix, everybody still wants content and stories. So, follow your dreams and you never know what's going to happen.
Do you think, is there any secret sauce to storytelling?
I do. I think the secret sauce is let the person tell the story. Don't get in the way. The people, you might have your opinions or your phrasing. You need to listen to the interview after you do it. Then the theme will yell at you. You'll see the theme and you'll hear the sound bites. You'll hear the sound bites that are most powerful that will drive the story. So what I tell young reporters, and I tell myself, get out of the way. Write your script to get to the next soundbite or the next interview to bridge the gap, but you're not the story, they are. And when that happens, magic happens because people have incredible stories to tell. And if you aren't the center of attention and you let them tell the story, that can be powerful.
My whole dream is just, to be a talk show host. And,
well, you do a great job.
Yeah, and then you're sitting here. I'm actually thankful and grateful that I'm like getting a 45 minutes, an hour of free coaching from you. That's what I'm really into. Telling stories because I believe everyone has a story, and then we tell them and let them to tell their story. It might help somebody change lives, do things, and I'm a big believer on that. Do you have any advice for me?
What I like about you is that you have that curiosity, you have that interest, and it's genuine. You can tell when somebody's interviewing you and it's not genuine or they're not present. You're present and you get it. And what I like about the fact, I've been watching some of your other stories, you really do get out of the way because you want to know how that person got there. What was their struggle? What did they overcome? How did they get there from here? And that's the one thing that will continue to be consistent in your storytelling. But all you need, there'll be one story that goes viral, and then that'll change everything overnight. And, you draw things out that maybe they weren't ready to say, or you draw things out because they trust you. And that's the key. Conversation, trust, and curiosity. Yeah, and that will get the stories.
One of the things that I'm grateful for is people that really trust me. Like I can connect with people very easy. And I believe that you got to be you. You can't pretend to be anybody else. I'm not going to pretend to be Walt or say, hey, I want to be Walt. No, it's me. I am me.
Yeah, and that's what resonates because my news director early on said, Walt, who is your idol? And I said, Peter Jennings. And he says, stop trying to be like Peter Jennings and be Walt. And I go, what do you mean? He says, I see you switch into this mode when you get onto the set where you go from Walt to Peter Jennings. You're not Peter Jennings. You're Walt. Take what you like about Peter Jennings, but you need to go out there and be you. And when I started doing that, that's when things really started taking off for me because I was me. I was genuine. I wasn't trying to be my idol. I talk a certain way. I have certain feelings. I have certain mannerisms. I was just too stiff trying to be Peter Jennings. But now if I thought something was funny with weather, we would laugh and talk. Or I'd connect with the sports guy and say, hey, our team's going to beat yours today. Or, and that was more connecting because people could see it was genuine. I wasn't trying to be somebody else. And, I met you at the Plug and Play event.
Yeah.
And you were genuine. You were the same person I met at the event that's at this table. And that resonates. That connects with people. It wasn't a scary situation where what is he going to say or what is he going to ask? Because I already felt like I knew you. You know what I mean? So that's important.
And where is Take This Out is going? What is the plan? Because as I said again, this is your legacy. You will retire. Is anybody to pass the baton to? What is the? Because it really helps the tech community.
Sure.
We really all watching it. We all tell each other, hey, did you watch that? The Walt put it out like a couple of days ago. It really helped us out.
You know, I really love what tech is doing. I think it's changing the world from Austin. I think Austin doesn't get the credit it deserves. I don't think the stories are being told about the innovators, the CEOs, the startups. I'd like to figure out a way to get the narrative out there where more innovation happens, because investors come in to fund these companies that are doing things that will change our lives for the better. My goal and hope for Tech This Out is that it continues to grow. And what I would really like to do is go to live events, be on stage near South by Southwest or Capital Factory Fed Supernova, where I talk to the CEOs after they're on stage. They come sit down, talk to me. We're live at all these tech events. And, you know, I can talk to Phantom Neuro about, hey, how are you using prosthetics to give people new hands with brain implants? That's crazy cool technology that will help people walk and talk and do things out of their wheelchair that they can't do right now. So, you know, Capital Factories, Plug and Plays, Austin Technology Council, the AI Council, all these people get all these great change makers into town. I would like to have maybe some live events or connect to live events like South by Southwest and just have them come on stage to tell their story, tell a bunch of stories. I could tell these tech stories every single day.
And there's a lot of them.
And there's so many that are going on. And I hope that my superpower is getting to an aspect of the startup that people don't really talk about. There was this one company called Lazarus 3D, and they make 3D printed implants so doctors can practice before the surgery. So I was talking to one of the founders, and she was telling me all about the stuff. And I said, this is great tech. I can't wait to tell us. But why did you start? What was the aha moment? You didn't tell me that yet. That should be number one. And she goes, well, what do you mean? I go, were you sitting in your bed in your dorm? Were you at a coffee shop? Were you on a mountaintop climb and thinking, I'm going to start this company? And she goes, actually, I started this company because I was on a bus with my buddies in Houston. We were in medical school, and this doctor was on there. And we said, hey, what are you doing today? And he goes, oh, I'm going to do a surgery on a liver. And, oh, that's interesting. How do you do that? And he goes, well, this morning I practiced on a bell pepper because the bell pepper has kind of like a skin of a human. And once you get through the tough part, you got that skin below it. And I kind of practiced my incisions. And then he went off and did the surgery, and they all sat out, had coffee and said, this guy is going to cut somebody open after practicing on a bell pepper? There's got to be a better way. And so we thought, well, what if we do a scan of that person's organ, or take their scans, make a 3D printed organ with soft tissue of their liver or whatever the surgery is on, so the doctor can actually work on that person's liver, get into the tumor, take it out, and really practice on the person. So that's how Lazarus 3D was born. But she never was going to tell that story. She was telling the tech, which was great, but people want to know that she wasn't into it just to make a ton of money. She was into it because there was a problem, she was filling a need and helping doctors out, which gave better outcomes for patients. And that started because she thought it was crazy a doctor was using a bell pepper to practice his surgery on. So that type of thing.
Wow. It's all about the stories. It's all about the stories and how you're going to say it and tell it. But Walt, I know how busy you are, but I'm grateful for you as a friend, and you be here today. That means a lot, my friend.
My pleasure. Such an honor to be on this. And, you know, I can't wait to see where you're going next. And we got to get you on Tech This Out.
Oh, absolutely. I would love to do that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.